Hey there, herbalist and microbiologist Anna Maria Helt here with Monday's Mushroom, episode 10. This week I get into Shiitake mushroom, otherwise known by its botanical name, Lentinula idolis. And this is the world's first cultivated mushroom. It was first grown some 1,000 years ago in China. It is a wild mushroom, even though we're used to seeing it in the grocery store, and I'll come back to that in just a moment with some pictures. It has traditionally been used as what we now call a functional food. So it was used for illness prevention, so for instance, cold and flu, and this is indeed a use by contemporary herbalists or mushroomists. This was used for skin issues like preventing dermatitis. Ironically enough, raw or undercooked shiitake mushrooms can cause dermatitis in some susceptible people, though. Shiitake is also traditionally used for liver issues, for supporting blood vessel health, for, what was the other one? Oh, to counter an overly acidic diet, such as a diet very high in animal proteins, just as an example. So very long history of use as a medicinal food. Here's some beautiful shiitake mushrooms from the grocery store. Many of you will be familiar with what they look like. Really pretty wavy cap and a rather tough fibrous stalk, light colored gills on the underside. And so this is how a lot of us know shiitake. We pick them up in the bin in the produce department, bring them home, chop them up, cook them, what have you. Here is wild shiitake. So many of us are not used to seeing them growing in the wild, and we tend to forget that they don't simply originate in the grocery store. And while they are cultivated, this is what they look like. If you happen to stumble upon them growing on a log, actually quite a bit more beautiful, I think, even than our tame cultivated varieties of shiitake. So incidentally, shiitake, Shiitake, take means mushroom, but the shi part of this actually refers to the chestnut tree on which this mushroom grows. So this is a saprophytic mushroom, meaning that it grows on dead or decaying organic matter, and in this case it likes chestnut trees. Here's another shot of shiitake in the wild, really lovely shot where you can see the light colored gills here. So the focus of today is going to be on shiitake as it pertains to cancer. And a focus of that is going to be on a molecule called lentinan. Very big molecule, as you can see here, lentinan. So this is used as a biological response modifier in Asia for people that have cancer and are undergoing treatment with chemo and or radiation. And a biological response modifier is basically something used to modify immune responses in various ways. So lentinan is a purified beta-glucan. Beta-glucans and glucans in general are very complex carbohydrates that are major components of fungal cell walls. So fungal cell walls are these complicated layered structures that are external to the plasma membrane that lines a fungal cell. And as you can see, kind of sandwiched in the middle here is the beta-glucan layer of just a generic typical fungal cell wall here. And so beta-glucans are one of many bioactive molecules produced by fungi, including mushrooms. So coming back to the beta-glucan lentinan, like I said, this is used as a biological response modifier in multiple parts of Asia. So let's get into it. So lentinan has been approved in China and Japan as adjunctive cancer therapy for the past 40 years. What I mean by adjunctive is that it is given on top of, quote, standard cancer treatment, so chemotherapy, radiation, and such. And it's being used as what's known as a biological response modifier. These are substances that have an impact on immune system reactions. And so there was a review published in 2019 looking at about almost 9,500 cases of cancer being treated with chemo and or radiation with lentinan on top of it as adjunctive treatment. And in this review, there was a benefit conferred by the lentinan compared to when it was just chemo and or radiation. In other words, the addition of this biological response modifier to the standard treatments improved quality of life and treatment efficacy, things like that. A similar review looked specifically at lung cancer, non-small cell lung cancer specifically, where lentinan was being used on top of cisplatin, one of the standard drugs used for this disease. And what was found in a review of variously controlled trials is, again, an improvement in quality of life, clinical efficacy of the drug, reduced side effects, and these weren't necessarily massive effects, but they were statistically significant effects in those different parameters. There was another review of lung cancer cases where, again, looking at multiple cases over the years, multiple small studies rather over the years, there was improvement seen in quality of life and treatment efficacy when lentinan injection was used together with the various types of chemo used for lung cancer. And this one was a summary of 12 years of clinical studies in China. Now, for all of these, there are methodological issues with the multiple studies that were reviewed. Either they lacked a proper control arm to compare the lentinan to when it's added to chemotherapy, or there were other aspects that were problematic. Study sizes were too small to draw conclusions, etc. But in terms of looking at the thousands of cases of lentinan usage, there does appear to be an improvement in quality of life, an improvement in treatment efficacy and such when going through this data. And so there's a bunch of construction going on outside, so I'm just making sure that nobody's walking up to tell me that they've just damaged my sewer line again. Anyway, there has been a controlled trial that came out in 2017 looking at lentinan as adjunctive therapy for breast cancer. Now, all of the other stuff that I just kind of discussed quickly, that is where lentinan has been injected. When it was given along with the chemo, it was done by injection. This 2017 study with breast cancer that I'm mentioning now, lentinan was used orally. So it was used as a tablet and compared to a placebo tablet in the context of chemotherapy for breast cancer. So this was a randomized trial, meaning that people were randomly put in the placebo plus chemo group or the lentinan plus chemo group, and this removes bias of like, hey, let's stick all the really sick people in the placebo group so that our data looks better. So it was randomized. It was a double-blind trial, meaning that neither the researchers nor the patients knew who was getting the placebo pill and who was getting the lentinan pill until after everything was done. And so that's another way to remove bias in the analysis of a study. And so in this, again, it wasn't a huge study, but in this small study, the inclusion of lentinan improved quality of life in these people being treated for breast cancer and also improved immune parameters in them. And that's important because, one, the immune system is important for mopping up whatever residual cancer cells may be lurking following chemotherapy. And two, the immune system is important to prevent these folks from getting sick, from getting colds, flus, other issues while they're immunocompromised, not only from the chemo, but from the cancer itself, which is immunosuppressive. So again, this was oral lentinan in a small study. So there have been a lot of promising results from little pilot studies, small but not fantastically controlled clinical studies, together with the data accumulated from 40 years of use of lentinan in China and Japan and elsewhere as adjunctive therapy. It's kind of annoying that larger randomized double-blind controlled trials have not yet been done on this mushroom, given all of the hopeful results seen so far, not only with people, but in a multitude of animal studies. But hopefully somebody is working on it. In the meantime, though, as a simple health boosting food, it can't hurt to eat shiitake a few times a week. Make sure it's well cooked so you don't get that nasty dermatitis reaction some people get from the undercooked mushrooms. Great way to support a healthy immune system. Long tradition of shiitake as a functional food, like I said earlier, for supporting general health. So there you go. Shiitake. I'll come back to shiitake in future Monday's mushroom episodes and look at other aspects of its traditional usage and modern research. Any comments or questions, feel free to stick them in the comments section. As always, I look at them and answer them. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for next week's Monday's Mushroom.